Okay, Devil and Tom Walker. Now, when you annotate, I would make notes above it. You can also, and this is recommended, back to the first page. Now, when you're looking to find symbols, remember, symbols, it's a type of archetype, which means whatever it is in this story, it's also in Masque of the Red Death. Okay, so when we look up the symbolism of this word, you're going to see the same symbolism in Masque of the Red Death. When we do Masque of the Red Death, after that, when we do Minister's Black Veil, you're not going to have to look it up again because it's the same thing, because the symbol is an archetype. So that's why, so that you can make a list of all your symbols. You can go ahead and move if you need to. Okay. All right. I'm going to do the first couple sentences kind of for you. Let me pause it. Hold on. So the first couple sentences, I'm pretty much going to do all the work. Okay. You'll listen. You'll mimic the same things that I'm doing. You'll write what I write on the paper, on your paper. And then after that, that's when I'm going to back off and I'm going to let you try, and that's where you'll earn your stamps and you earn your points and so forth. Okay. All right. I know that symbols, and this is from the video and it's what I'm telling you, are items, okay, numbers, colors, okay, nature, okay, especially with the dark romantic. Okay. So when I'm reading, I'm going to want to focus on these things. Every time I see some type of item, okay, every time I see a number, every time I see a color, every time I see anything in nature, I'm going to stop and I'm going to ask myself, is that a symbol? Okay. A few, okay, few is a number. It's not a specific number, but it's a number. So I highlight it and then I ask myself, okay, what does few mean? Well, few means 3. And then so I go, okay, well, if few means 3, I need to look up the symbolism of 3, and that's what you would do, is you would just Google symbolism of 3. And the symbolism of 3, because I've already done it, is beginning, middle, end, and birth, life, and death. Okay. Now, there's not much I can do with it at this point. It's the second word of the sentence. But that's my first symbol, and I need to keep it in mind that right off the bat, the author is talking about birth, life, and death. We know that he doesn't necessarily mean your physical birth, like when my boys were born or when you were born. It could be the birth of a new idea. It could be the birth of sin, anything that is new. Okay, the birth, the life would be living whatever that is, and then the death would be the change of. A few miles from Boston, that's a place, so I'm going to stop. And I'm going to ask myself, why did he choose Boston as the place to set this? Because setting is always important. So I looked up the symbolism of Boston, what does it mean, what was going on at the time, okay? And when I looked it up, this is what I found. There it is. In this time period, authors would set a story in Boston if they wanted to be symbolic of evil. Okay? It had to do with the Puritans and what was going on in the time period. Now, I know I skipped a lot of the Puritan things from the first 9 weeks because we ran out of time, but the Puritan religion was very, very harsh. And if you disagreed, is that a hand? Okay. If you disagreed with pretty much anything, it was a very harsh punishment. And in this story and in the time period, they were going away from the Puritans because they finally realized, hey, Puritans were not the best thing to have. And that's why Boston is symbolic of evil. Okay. In Massachusetts, there's a deep inlet. That's nature. So I want to look at that one. Okay. And so I look it up and I say, okay, what could inlet mean? And when you look up symbolism of inlet, the answer is restrictive thinking. When you have something like that, you can't just go like restrictive thinking and move on. You have to look at the word next to it. Deep. Okay. So that tells me that deep, which is way down, there's a lot of in-depth, really strong restrictive thinking. Well, what is restrictive thinking? Okay, this one is one of those that you can earn points on. Let me push pause. Okay, I'm recording again. Forbidden to hold back. Okay, that's kind of where the Puritans were leading. They were very restrictive in their thinking. You were forbidden to do pretty much anything but what they taught. Okay? And so the fact that it's deep tells you that this philosophy was really deep, right? It wasn't like it was one of those, oh, sometimes I think that and sometimes I don't. It was deeply held beliefs. Winding, okay. Now, this is kind of describing inlet. And so I do want to check and see if there's a possibility that that one might be a symbol simply because it's describing inlet, and inlet is such a big symbol with restrictive thinking. So I would look that up, which I did already. And it means journey or confusion. Several miles into the interior of the country from Charles Bay. Okay. So I looked that up because it's a place. Doesn't mean it's symbolic. Sometimes they're not. It's just one of those things of because it's a place, I need to look it up and see if I'm missing information. Is it something I need? And so I circled Charles Bay. And again, I've already looked it up, so I'm going to tell you. In the time period, Charles Bay was a place that was full of danger. The crime rate was very high, and deceit. And terminating in a thickly wooded, nature, I need to stop. Okay, so I'm going to circle wooded. And then I would just type in symbolism of wooded, okay, into Google or Yahoo or whatever search engine that you have. And it means strength, inflexible, or reliable. Yeah, reliable. Swamp. Nature again. Yeah. Okay, good. So we stop. And it means uncertainty. And I think I'm going to misspell this one. Uncertainty, I think I got it right. Uncertainty, conflict, or obstacle. Okay, swamp or morass. There's nature again, so I want to stop.
You said what?
Morass. It's up here in the story.
Dude.
And then that means complicated, or confused. Now, in the first sentence, we have a lot of our symbols. Okay, we actually have all of them in the first sentence. And so now what you have to do is you have to think, well, what is the purpose of the symbols? What do I need them for? Remember that the symbols are going to tell you the characterization, they're going to tell you the theme, they're going to tell you the motivations. So now look back at the sentence using the symbols. A few miles from Boston, so birth, life, and death, there was this place that represents evil. Okay, there is a lot of restrictive thinking going on. A lot of people were confused. Okay, and in the middle of this country was Charles Bay, which was full of danger and deceit. And terminating, which means stop, and a thickly wooded, which means strength, reliable, or inflexible. We don't know yet, so we want to kind of look at that one. Thickly wooded swamp, which means uncertainty, conflict, or obstacle, or morass, which is complicated or confused. So just based on this, we know that the setting, let me push pause before you answer. That is definitely one of the conflicts that the symbols develops. It's how do we think? You know, you've got the Puritans ending, okay, and then you have the Industrial Revolution starting. Okay? And so what do? Do we follow what we've always been taught? Okay? And these are deeply held beliefs, okay? Or do we sort of break off? Okay, do we journey into this new thing, which would be the Industrial Revolution, and leave away? And so you do have that big conflict going on. Okay, very good. Now we have to look over here at these three symbols: wooded, swamp, and morass. Now when we look at wooded, you've got strength, inflexible, reliable. How do we know which one it is? We look at the context. Okay. Restrictive thinking, journey or confusion, danger, deceit, confused. All of those are negative words, aren't they? Okay. So when we look at wooded, we have to determine which one of these is going to be. So let's switch colors. Strength, is that a positive or a negative word?
I mean, it could be both.
Okay, so it could be both, so we'll question that one. Inflexible. Inflexible, negative. Okay. Reliable, positive. So we're going to cross out reliable because we don't want a positive word, positive connotation, when every other word, the symbol is negative. And you're right, strength can be negative or it can be positive. So let's look at it in context of this. It is. We want to go with the one that is stronger in negativity because it's talking about restrictive thinking being deep and being confused. And for them to have strength, that would be something that's good in this case, right? So we'll actually cross out strength. And we know that wooded in this context means inflexible. Okay? So that's what we do. Do you understand the concept of when I say we're going to annotate for symbols, what we're doing? Okay. All right. What? All right, so we're recording again. All right, what we're going to do... All right, now this time, okay, I've done all the work for the first sentence. Now it's time for you guys to brush the dust off your brain. And I know you can do this. Remember, I don't expect perfection. You're just learning how to do this. Instead, we want you to try. So as we're going through, if you even think it's a possible symbol, raise your hand. Give me a chance to pause it. Raise your hand, okay, and then we'll talk about whether or not it can be a symbol. Don't forget, you'll get your point, and this is where you'll need to go for that. And then we'll talk about whether or not it's a symbol. If it is, we'll give you what the symbol is. I'll read slow so that you guys can yell out "stop" when I get to something that you think is a symbol. On one.
Yep, I got one.
Okay. One is a number, right? Look up here. Yep. Items, numbers, colors, and nature.
Yep.
Okay. So we want to say, well, there's the number 1. So let's mark that one as a symbol. And number 1.
Independence. I don't know.
Maybe. It actually, you're not too far off. It means strong, energy, new beginning, which is a synonym for independence. And standing up for oneself.
That's all what one means?
Yes. Now what you have to realize is when you look at archetypes come from different cultures. Okay, and so you have to look at, these are the different cultures. You've got British, okay, all the way back to old Greek, or not old Greek, Old English, and then you have the Greek and Roman mythology in there, and then you have the Asians, like the Chinese culture and those things. And so you don't know which one fits because you don't know which one the author used until you looked at the context. Okay, that's why you have multiple meanings here. Okay, strong energy, new beginning, standing up for oneself. Okay. Based on just the first sentence, which one or ones do you think are our strongest possibilities? Raise your hand. You can go that it probably is new beginning. Okay. New beginning sounds positive, but it could be positive or negative depending on, is your new beginning that you have done something bad, or is it the new beginning that you have turned over a new leaf and you're doing something good? All right. On one side of this inlet, now we've already done inlet, so I'm going to circle it again just to remind myself that it's a symbol, even though we've already looked it up, is a beautiful, dark grove.
Yeah, that's
Stop. Good.
There you go. Grove is in nature.
Grove means knowledge. I'm pretty sure it means something else too. Let me double check that one. Yes. Knowledge or sacred refuge. Remember, when you look at a symbol, you can't just go, oh, grove is something that's sacred. You have to look at what's before it, the word dark. Okay. So what is the author saying about what is supposed to be this sacred place?
It's not dark.
It's not. It's full of
Evil.
evil, gloom, sin. Okay. So the Puritan life, okay, which is what he's commenting on, is causing what? People to become evil, or places that should be protected are becoming dangerous or exposed. Okay. And we get all of that from the first sentence and a half. Wow. Okay. You see how the symbols really get you into the meaning of the story?
Mm-hmm.
It's why, and I don't know how many times I've heard this, I'll have kids come up to me and they'll say, Miss Smith, I read the story. Why did I fail? It's because you didn't look at the hidden meaning that the author wanted you to get. You have to remember that for you guys, it takes time to learn these. And yes, we're going through and doing this. But in the time period, these things that you're looking up, they would have already known. Okay? Because these would have been taught to them through their sermons in the Bible, or through the things that they read with the fireside poets and things like that. So they wouldn't have needed to look this up. They would have gone through and go, oh, already, just common knowledge. So that's kind of why you missed the meaning that the author assumed everybody would already catch. 1770s, whatever, they did catch it. 2018, we're working at it a little bit harder. All right, grove. On the opposite side of the land, right, okay, did I hear a stop? Okay, so we're going to stop. Which word did you want me to stop on? Land, okay. All right, what do you think land can mean?
Fortified.
You said what?
Think about land. What did you say?
Fortified.
Fortified?
Fortified.
Fortified, okay, possibly. When you fortify something, you kind of build boundaries, I think is what he's trying to go with that. Think about people. Okay. If you have a lot of land, you're what?
Surrounded.
You're surrounded with a lot of that item, but what does that give you?
Room. Space. I don't know. Money, cash.
Okay. So it gives you, you're considered rich, right? Because but it's not rich in money, you're rich in land. So it is wealth. Okay. If you have a lot of wealth, people often do what to you? Praise you. They
Listen to you.
They listen to you, so you have something that begins with a P. Power. Okay. If you pass away, okay, and you have all of this land, what do you do with that typically?
Will.
You inherit it?
Your family would inherit it, right?
Yeah, like
so it's a legacy. Abruptly from the water's edge.
Hey, stop.
Okay, stop. Okay. Now, when we looked at this one, what word, I stopped for you so that you could kind of figure out you missed one, but rises abruptly from the water's edge. Which one did you miss there? Water. Okay. Now, the technique that I want you to do to kind of figure out what this means is, when do you use water?
Every day. It's an everyday thing.
You use it every day to do what? To clean.
To cleanse.
To cleanse. That's an A.
Holy water.
What's A?
I misspelled that. Well, I didn't misspell. I just left out the A. So let me fix it. Now, thinking in context of our story, they're not talking about taking a bath, okay, and washing away dirt. What are they talking about washing away? Sin. To cleanse from sin. Okay. All right, so on the opposite side of the land rises abruptly from the water's edge into a high ridge.
High ridge.
Stop. Good. Ridge. Okay. Now think about what a ridge is. Picture it in your mind. You've got this land, and there's some water, and then all of a sudden you have this ridge. What has that ridge done to the land?
Where's the ridge?
It has broken it apart, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's interrupted it. So what do you think the ridge could mean?
Say it again.
What do you think the ridge could mean? Well, it interrupts it. So it breaks something apart. So it means break apart. That's a synonym for breaking apart. Okay. Conflict. Because if you look at what land means, power, legacy, the fact that that is being broken causes conflict.
Right.
Okay. It could also be internal struggle with yourself. All right, does everyone understand when I say annotate your story, what I'm asking you to do?
Yes, ma'am.
That you, on your own paper, have notes that just says symbols.
All right.
And wait for me to stop recording before you guys make a lot of noise and get that out. And then also in your notes, you have a chart or a list, something where you have characterization. And the characters that we're going to look at are the devil, Tom, and his wife. And then you're also going to need a place in your notes, whether it's annotated on the worksheet or whether it's in an actual piece of paper with your notes. You're going to want to do possible themes. And the reason that I say possible themes is because as we go through and read, I'm going to say, can this be a theme? Can this be a theme? And you're going to go through and go, oh, well, there's evidence of that, or oh, there's evidence of that, and there's no evidence of that, so let's cross that one off. Okay, so it's learning how to find the theme as you read. All right. So I have this little part here for your list. Okay. I'm actually going to make a list and write out the symbols that we've already looked up so that you can kind of keep those. You don't have to write them twice. The reason that I like them as a list is because they apply to so many different stories that if you keep them just on Devil and Tom Walker, you're going to have a hard time going through and finding them. So organization-wise, it's easier to have them on a separate sheet. Okay. All right, let's see. I don't think it's going to let me do this. There we go. All right. So these are the symbols that we have already looked up. And I'll go with the black marker because I think it's easier to read in the back. So swamp. Can those in the back see? Anybody not be able to see?
Bird.
Barely? Do I need to make it big?
I should see big.
Okay. Uncertainty. Conflict. Obstacle. And then morass. Complicated. Confused. Actually, I'm going to pause this.